Well, Gene, last night, post-Game 3, Connor McDavid said, and I quote, "It's not over until it's over." And speaking to his teammates this morning, with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Matthias Ekholm especially, and his head coach Chris Knobloch, there's still a fundamental belief and pride in that Oilers dressing room.
Yeah, and Chris Knobloch was asked about sort of his role, and he said, of course I have a role between games, down 3-0, of sort of continuing that belief. But I think Chris, despite the fact he hasn't been around a long time, has been around long enough to know that the players lead that leadership group. You mentioned Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Matthias Ekholm and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman and Darnell Nurse are just some examples of that. And so I believe that they believe. Who am I to say otherwise? And I think, Tony, if the games had been 5-1, 6-2, 7-0, sure, people might go, well, what are they believing in? Because these games, they're not even close. But these games are close. And I think we all agree, Game 1, they pointed to Bobrovsky. Game 2, credit the entire Florida Panthers team for what they were able to do. Game 3, I think everyone's pointing sort of that 6.5 minutes in the second period, where the Edmonton Oilers had scored a goal by Warren Foegele. The building was bumping. Everyone was sort of waiting for that next goal that didn't come until Florida got 3 straight. And it didn't sink the Oilers, but it made it virtually impossible to come back. It still took a Sergei Bobrovsky Vezina Trophy type save on Ryan McLeod to make sure that it didn't go to overtime, which I think a lot of us were expecting that could happen considering how hard Edmonton came out in the third. But for sure, and I mean, like, why would you not believe? I mean, these players, I'm sure, have had doubters, whether it be individually or as teams throughout their past, wherever they have played, whenever they have played. So here they are, one of the tightest groups you and I have ever seen, one of the best groups that we've ever seen on the ice. So let's go for it. Let's do it. Let's do it together and win one, and we'll worry about win 2 after that.
And if Oilers fans need to instill some belief within themselves, one stat that will help in that regard, this team still has the best points percentage since Chris Knobloch took over in mid-November. All right, last night, post-game as well, Stuart Skinner said, if anybody could do it,
it's the oil.
It's the oil. So I ask you, if the Oilers want to get the job done in Game 4, what adjustments do you need to see from the team on the ice if they want to come out on top, Gene?
Goals. I mean, I think we have to start with the most important part, and we wait to see if period 3 of Game 3 ends up sort of, we've often heard Connor McDavid and the Oilers say there's really generally no momentum between games in the Stanley Cup final or during the playoffs. You will have them, obviously, in-game momentum swing. So we wait to see if those 2 goals, I mean, Philip Broberg scored a goal. What are the odds of that? I mean, not very high.
Too.
Oh, my gosh. So my gosh. I'm thinking, wow, like this kid to really come off the bench seated and seemingly not a part of their plans, to come out and play the way he has been nothing short of unbelievable. Ryan McLeod with a fantastic tip and a goal that you kind of think, well, that's going to be a tough one to score. So goals, I mean, Chris Knobloch was asked what's the difference in the series? Finishing. And it's quite clear. Zach Hyman discussed it. And I think what's frustrating for them is that they are getting the looks. He said, we're getting the looks on the power play. We're getting the looks 5-on-5. They're putting together, other than Game 2, a lot of shots. And I think that's what's left Edmonton. And I get it. Edmonton's not going to go, man, we deserve to be down 3-0. No, they're not going to say that, whether they believe it or not. But what they do believe is that the series could be 2-1. Some of them believe it could be 2-1 for themselves. Some believe, I think, that at least it could be 2-1 in a deficit of a game behind or a victory behind Florida. So I think goal scoring is it. Getting a lead and more than one and for longer than a few minutes. I mean, Florida, to their credit, has just stymied Edmonton and been so opportunistic. I love what Ryan Nugent-Hopkins said about, we think we're making what might be considered a little mistake, and they make it a big mistake. And that's the kind of team Florida is, and that's what you expect in the Stanley Cup final, is for teams to be able to do that, to sort of take advantage of your mistake and turn it into an opportunity and turn it into a goal. And I think just play loose. I mean, at this point, the odds are what they are. One team's come back, from a Stanley Cup final down 3-0 and gone on to win it. Just come out and play. Be a kid. Remember those road hockey days?
Yeah.
Remember those days on on the pond or the backyard rink or the community rink, and just come out and enjoy yourself. The crowd will do their part. There's no concern about that. So those are some of the things I would look for them in order to get into this game and get ahead in this game and win this game.
Gene, just to backtrack as smoothly as Brett Kulak does on the ice.
He's very good at that.
Going back to Philip Broberg, I actually had an off-camera conversation with him, and I said, what really clicked for you? What's the biggest difference from Philip Broberg now from the one we saw at the start of the year? And he said, I'm learning to trust my instincts a little bit more. I'm not thinking out on the ice, and I'm allowing myself to play to my full skill set. Well, when Philip Broberg scored on that end of the ice, 18,347, it was pure jubilation. What's it been like to see this city host another Stanley Cup final, Gene?
Well, you almost forget the last one. I think the last one being, 1990. I remember watching. I was living in Lethbridge, and the Oilers were down 3-1 to the Winnipeg Jets. And the Jets, God bless them, had some really good teams. Would run into Edmonton and sometimes Calgary. And poor Dale Howardchuk, God bless him, he was one of the great hockey players of all time. And they just didn't have enough to get past Alberta back in those days. And I thought, Edmonton's not going to win the Cup in 1990. Turns out they came back from that deficit of 3-1, won the series in 7, went on to win the Stanley Cup against Boston. Bill Ranford was the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Tony, listen, when you're down 3-0, I felt like everybody had a hockey hangover this morning. Some of them were true hangovers, some were real ones, and some were just deflation. Because of everything you put in. I couldn't believe it being around the rink yesterday. The thousands of people that were here. Our Lady Peace did a wonderful job. I mean, people are everywhere. And it's 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon, and they're making their way down here after a late lunch or cutting out of work or finishing school or, getting out of an assignment at school. Whatever it was, they were making it here. And so I want to preface this by saying the series isn't over. So it may not be now, it may be in a week or 10 days, but reflect on what this has been like. When I covered the 2006 Cup final, you don't think about when the next one's going to happen. You just don't. You think about the one that you're in. And then it ends, and that one ended in 7 games in disappointment and Ryan Smith crying, walking off the ice. And you don't think about if it's going to be 2008 or 2010, and here we are in 2024. So whatever happens in Game 4, a potential Game 5, a potential Game 6, and if necessary, Game 7, enjoy the ride. It's been wonderful. I mean, Connor McDavid and company have put the belief back in this city and in oil country, which has no boundaries, no matter where we go, who we see, whether it's from Australia or Africa or in the United States or from Leduc or from Stony Plain or from Millet or anywhere. People love their Oilers, and I hope that no matter what happens, they continue to love their Oilers because of what they've done for us, for this city, and just the belief and the positive attitude that comes with the team, because sport brings people together like nothing else.